Morning, everyone. It's Monday, April 12th, the last day of our session. We'll be meeting to vote at least one more time today, maybe more. But well, I'll say a little bit more about that in a moment. We have 6 bills on our list, but one of them still has to be taken up by the Education Subcommittee. So they will be voting after the first session. We have 3 concurrences right now. There's about 8 other bills coming from the Senate that are, some are still on second reader and some are still on third that we need to concur. But your analyst and your subcommittee chair is aware of those. So we're going to try to keep them moving. For those not paying attention this morning, Senate rules met on Saturday, and today on the floor, they took 6 of your bills out of rules, including, for example, Delegate Feldmark, your campaign finance one. So they basically took out all of our identical cross files as we have done with them. So I suspect that they will be moving them through the process today as well. So just letting everyone know that that's happening, and that again, we'll have more concurrences later. We will start, and I think all 5 that we're doing right now on our regular voting list are cross files. We will start with Senate Bill 269, Delegate Barnes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This bill is an exact cross file from House Bill 1311 that was passed out of the House. The bill requires the state, a county, or a municipal corporation to provide a property tax refund to a disabled active duty service member, disabled veteran, a surviving spouse, for years in which they were eligible for a property tax exemption, but the exemption was not granted. The disabled active duty service member, disabled veteran, or surviving spouse must apply for the refund within 3 years after the first eligibility for exemption. The bill applies retroactively for 3 years. Move the bill.
Second.
And to point out that the House bills on the governor's desk and the House and Senate bills passed our respective chambers unanimously. All right, all those in favor of 269?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you. House Bill 300, Delegate Ebersol.
Senate Bill, am I right?
Senate Bill 300, thank you, sorry.
I don't have the list in front of me. Senate Bill 300 is Senator Peters' bill, which is now going to be identical to House Bill 714. Hasn't come over yet, but that's Delegate Guyton's bill. This is a bill that is going to require, IEP plans have a continuity of learning in them. In the event, we have an event similar to what happened with COVID, where learning is occurring, but people are not in the building. It also has a requirement of contact in a certain amount of time. All we have to do is move favorable.
Second.
And Delegate Ebersol, just to confirm, this is identical to 714 as amended that's over in the Senate?
Yes, I'm going to make sure that Alistair says that's true. He's not in his head. It's my understanding is that when if 714 comes over, I think it was on second reader.
It's on third.
Will be.
It's on third, calendar number 50, so it will be coming back to us. It will be one of our early concurrences.
We'll concur, correct.
Okay, Alistair, I think, has joined us. Alistair, to confirm that House Bill 714 and Senate Bill 300 are now in the same posture?
They will be when HB 714 comes to us.
Okay. All right, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? All right, unanimous as well. Senate Bill 578, Delegate Lutke.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senate Bill 578 is an identical cross-file to House Bill
495.
495, that was Delegate Polakovich-Carr's bill. As amended by the Senate, which are the same amendments we did in the House, all the bill does is in the future expand our decoupling law to clarify that it applies not only to federal tax changes that would affect Maryland taxes in the current tax year, but also retroactive tax changes like we saw under the CARES Act. So it doesn't actually cut any of the things in the CARES Act, but going forward would clarify our law on decoupling. And I move favorable.
Second.
A move and a second, and just to let everyone know, The House cross file is on third reader. It was special ordered the other day in the Senate, but it's still on third reader. So it's moving along. Questions, Delegate Buckle?
I think Delegate Lukey adequately really answered my question. I just want to briefly confirm it. It does the same thing that we did in the Revenue Subcommittee and our committee. The Delegate Polakovich-Carr's bill, it's not going to affect people who've already filed their return
Dana Jones,
on the
I'm coming in.
the,
'cause I'm going to
past
get sued.
Delegate Jones, you're not
the
muted.
existing.
I muted her.
Okay.
It's not going to affect people who've already filed or in the process of filing, trying to take advantage of the federal changes, allowing them to restate earnings, restate income for prior years. But it will let everyone know going forward, if the feds pass such a bill that would allow you to restate for prior years, we won't automatically implement that until we go through the current decoupling coupling process.
It wouldn't affect any of the three provisions in the CARES Act that were originally affected by the bill. In the future, what essentially it'll do is it'll give the legislature time to weigh in and affirmatively decide if they want to permanently decouple from a provision of federal law that affects past tax.
It's like a $5 million. Am I getting that right? It's like the comptroller determines if the federal change would have at least a $5 million revenue impact for us, then he holds the automatic coupling until the legislature has had input. Is that right?
He or she, yes.
He or she. Well, it's always been he so far. So, when a certain delegate from Baltimore City may be there, I'll say she. But until then, yeah. Thank you.
Yep.
Delegate Hornberger?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So in the fiscal note on the original bill, it says in the small business impact that it may hurt some businesses, may help some businesses. So with the amendments that we've put on there and the new part, that's still the same. And could you elaborate on who would help or hurt?
So with the amendments that were put on there, I think most of what the small business impact was talking about was those provisions, the CARES Act that the bill originally would have decoupled with, and that's out of the bill.
Okay.
In the future, to the extent that there is a federal tax change that affects prior tax years and Maryland automatically decouples, that could, just like a regularly decoupling law, it could theoretically not be beneficial or be beneficial to small businesses depending on which way the federal tax change is going. Essentially, really just this is a question of like the state being able to set its own tax policy, right? And giving the legislature time to figure out whether we want to go along with what the feds are doing on anything.
Okay.
Tax related.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, looks unanimous. Senate Bill 711, Delegate Ebersol.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Senate Bill 711 is going to be now an exec to its cross file, House Bill 944, Delegate Solomon's bill, that creates a pilot program that would incentivize in 3 areas, and it's pilot for that reason, creating new family child cares across the state. This is Senator King's bill. In the form we have it, it is identical to the one that we concurred on 944, so I move favorable.
And 944 is on the governor's desk.
Correct.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor of Senate Bill 711?
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed?
Makes me want a Slurpee.
What? I don't. Senate Bill 785, we're going to take up later after the subcommittee meets. Senate Bill 916, Delegate Lukey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is the identical cross file to Delegate Polakovich's whistleblower reward program bill. We've already considered that bill, and I think the votes probably are the same as they were before. There really haven't been changes in the Senate from what the House position was.
So? Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Questions, Delegate Hornberger.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to confirm, because I spoke with my accountant about this bill. This basically puts us in the same posture as the federal IRS as far as whistleblower provisions go. Is that correct?
That's correct. The IRS has had this program successfully for a number of years.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Gonna mute another member there. All right, all those in favor of Senate Bill 916?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Party line minus Hornberger. But we are still missing. Who are we? Oh, we're missing Shoemaker, obviously, but
Yeah, I'm a little concerned about Delegate Shoemaker. No one has been able to reach him, including his aide, since 9:30 this morning.
Hey, Jason, is he staying down here? Is he here?
No.
Did it call his home?
Yeah, his parking spot was empty when I got in about an hour ago.
That's not good.
Well, we can pray.
Here we are.
and we can send the police out to find him.
That's true.
I hope he's okay. I'm sure he is. We do have 3 concurrences to take up, and then we're going to discuss sports betting. But before I do that, I'm going to interrupt for a point of personal privilege. Our analysts and several delegates were getting a lot of messages from me yesterday, but one of our colleagues was a little too busy to get back to me because he proposed to his girlfriend, and I would like everyone to know that she said yes. So congratulations, Mr. Vice Chair, on your engagement yesterday.
Oh, damn.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Bravo.
Oh, I can hear it in the suite with all the staff that are here. Everyone is screaming. And
Wow.
I'm sure the vice chair can hear it as well. So very excited for the 2 of them. And how, if you want to tell the world, Delegate Washington, what'd you do? How'd you do it?
Oh man, it was a crazy day yesterday. We went downtown DC at this nice restaurant. All our friends and family were there, and just surprised her with a big "Marry Me" sign on the rooftop deck, and just I'll send you all a picture later of what like. So it was
Dave
it
had
was
a
really-
shiny die.
She loved
You
it.
have
So I'm a
cojones,
happy
my
man.
friend.
Good work, Mr. Vice Chair.
All
Man,
right,
bro.
congratulations.
there's a
Yes,
lot of
sir.
women
Sir,
crying
sir,
watching this broadcast right now. There's a lot of sad women out there.
We're still alive. We're still alive.
Well
So
done.
you're trying to get him in trouble.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Anyway,
Appreciate it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Congratulations, and to everyone else, he did allow me to do that on his.
Nice.
House Bill 222, Delegate Wilkins, and these are the concurrences.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can you all hear me? Great. Okay, I'll switch to my computer. Good morning, everyone. House Bill 222, as you might remember, the Judiciary Committee and Ways and Means did a whole work on the Value My Vote Act to ensure equal access to the ballot for incarcerated individuals.
Which will make sure.
Now, the Senate did strip out pretty much all of the amendments that we put onto the bill. However, the bill is certainly still worthy of moving forward to take an important step forward for incarcerated individuals and those who are eligible to vote. So what it does is that it's basically now with the Senate version, it's now as it was introduced for the most part, which means that State Board of Elections and Department of Corrections have to work together. SB would adopt regulations to establish a program to inform eligible incarcerated individuals about their voting rights, make sure they get a ballot. So it will include those types of provisions. What it doesn't include is the work that we did around the drop boxes, the ombudsman, the signage, and those other aspects that we thought were really important. However, we do think that this is an important movement forward. We'll come back next year. I move to concur with the Senate amendments.
Second.
All right, thank you, Delegate Wilkins. All those in favor of concurring?
Aye.
Aye. I think I've since learned we need 12 people to concur, and maybe we should do like the floor, we vote on the concurrence, and then we can vote on the bill itself. I'm not sure, what vote do you all keep track of, Haley and Sarah, or Haley and Pat?
For the concurrences, we don't actually keep track of votes.
Okay, so from my knowledge, we just need the 12 yeses to know.
Correct.
With the majority. Okay, House Bill 532, Delegate Patterson, do you have the sheet with you?
Yes, I do. Good morning, everyone. House Bill 532 is identical to cross-file with Senate Bill 452. It is gaming, video lottery terminals, payout percentages, and distribution of proceeds. The Senate amendments include they require the local impact grants distributed to Anne Arundel County or Baltimore City as a result of the whole harmless provision to be paid from the state lottery fund. Strike a provision that would have altered the percentage of VLT proceeds to be paid to the Anne Arundel County facility operator. Delay the percentage in the percentage of, delay the increase in the percentage of VLT proceeds to be paid to the facility operators in Baltimore City and Cecil County, and expand and report that the State Lottery and Gaming Control Agency is required to submit on December the 1st, 2022, to include information on the change to overall VLT proceeds resulting from the change in the average VLT payout percentage authorized by the bill. Move favorable to concur.
Move to concur?
Second.
Okay. And Delegate Buckle seconded. I know that he was the leading driver on this bill. Any other questions?
Madam Chair.
Yes, Delegate Ivy.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and Delegate Patterson. I apologize. I was looking on the list for this bill, but could you just confirm for me, this is the hold harmless provision legislation, correct?
That's correct.
And nothing has changed?
Nothing has changed. The only difference is that we're providing that rather than being paid from all of the VLT proceeds, they're going to be paid from the state lottery fund. The reason regarding that was because the way that the proceeds are currently distributed, it would have been administratively complex. Otherwise, this was a very clean solution to that issue.
Thank you very much, George, and thank you, Madam Chair.
All right, thank you. Any other questions? I think it was moved to concur. Was there a second?
Second.
All those in favor of the concurrence?
Aye.
Aye.
Yes. Oh, all right. That's at least 12. We're good. House Bill 1322, Mr. Vice Chair.
Madam Chair, do you mind if I special order the bill until after our next voting session?
No problem.
Okay, thank you.
All right. To members, we are not done. As I mentioned, there's about 8 to 10 bills coming back to us later with the intent to concur on most of them, or at least that interest from the subcommittee chair and the analysts. They'll obviously bring it back to the committee. The sports betting bill is on third reader today in the Senate. I believe they will be sending it back to second reader and putting on amendments that have been agreed to between the House and Senate. And then I believe they will then be suspending the rules and moving it to third reader. And then it will be coming back to us to concur. But the timing later might not be as easy. So I wanted George to walk people through the main details of that bill that will be coming back to us. So when we have to concur later, everyone will have had a chance to take a look, ask any questions or whatever else. So George, if you can begin. I believe everyone were on the floor at 1, so I was hoping we had at least half an hour for this. So it looks like that we do if that time is needed. So go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As Chair indicated, there were amendments that have been agreed to between the House and the Senate. I'll provide an overview of those amendments now. The new compromise amendments would make technical and clarifying changes. It would alter the list of entities to which a sports wagering license shall be awarded if the applicant satisfies licensing requirements. That's with respect to both Class A's and Class B's, and I can go into some more detail in a moment on that. It would increase the total numbers of sports wagering licenses authorized to be issued. This is with respect to Class B licenses and mobile licenses.
Can you describe what who is A1, A2, B1, B2? Is that part of your list, or can you do that now?
I can do that now. So
okay.
The Senate has divided both Class A sports wagering operating facilities and Class B operating facilities into 2 categories, A1 and A2. An A1 sports wagering facility licensee would include video lottery operators with more than 1,000 video lottery terminals, or the owners or the designees of owners of a stadium in Prince George's County that is primarily used for professional football, NFL, the owner or the designee of a professional football franchise that's a licensee of a stadium in Baltimore City, the owner or the designee of the owner of a professional major league baseball franchise that is a lessee of a stadium in Baltimore City. And it was also expanded to include the owner or the designee of an owner of a professional hockey league franchise, that's NHL, the owner of a designee of an owner or designee of an owner of a professional basketball association or NBA franchise, or the owner or the designee of an owner of a professional soccer league, MLS franchise, all of which would be owners or lessees of would be lessees of a stadium in the state.
And that's just seeing everyone as a possible, why can't I think of the word? Entitlement for a team that might be wanting to come. Delegate Buckle, can you hold your questions, or is it go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, I just said that I lost you. You went off my screen there for a minute. You froze. I didn't know what you were saying. That's all.
Okay, I was just mentioning that the NHL, NBA, MLS language is just seen as a potential enticement if those teams choose the state of Maryland. Yes, back to you, George.
The Class A2 sports wagering licensees would be the video lottery operators with 1,000 or fewer VLTs, or a horse racing licensee. The horse racing licensee is the licensee who's authorized to conduct racing in Anne Arundel County. And then the Class Bs, there would be delineations between B1s and B2 facilities based on the number of full-time equivalent employees or the amount of annual gross receipts. There would be Class B1 or B2 sports wagering facilities authorized to be issued to holders of the license issued by the State Racing Commission under 11.524, the business regulation article, including a subsidiary of the license holder that's effectively the state fair or its subsidiary. A person who's the owner or a lessee of a facility approved for satellite simulcast betting before January 1, 2021, unless the simulcast facility is located at a video lottery facility or a racetrack. So
And
this is
everyone, the other language for that is an OTB, off-track betting. And that does include the Charles County site we originally had named in our bill. Okay.
And then lastly, persons who hold a commercial bingo license if the facility at which the person operates commercial bingo was permitted to operate at least 200 electronic bingo machines or electronic tip jar machines on January 1, 2021. If you are not within those categories, then those applicants would be free to apply for one of the competitive Class B1 or B2 licenses. And there would be, as amended, 30 of those licenses.
And to clarify, B1 and B2 is based on the size of the group. So they're not applying for a B1 or B2, but based on their current gross receipts or their number of employees is what defines it.
And then lastly, the compromise amendments increase the total number of mobile sports wagering licenses that may be issued, and that would be 60.
We have several questions, George. Start with Delegate Lasanti.
Yes, thank you very much. And I just had a quick question on, I think it's the B1 license for the state fair. Is that year round or just or certain times a year? How does that work?
It could be year round.
It could be year round. Thank you very much.
Delegate Buckle.
Thank you, Madam Chair. George, I just had a couple of just clarifying questions. What's the total number of what I'll call guaranteed Class B licenses? I know there's 30 that can be awarded through the commission process, but there's just
seven named.
So there's 7 named. That includes the riverboat, and that includes all OTBs if they want them. I know some of them are
correct. So there would be 4 OTBs which fall into the description under that section.
So they may or may not
Fair
get
Society
one.
is, pardon me?
they may or may not get one. Some of the OTBs clearly think they have the bandwidth to do that, and some of them don't seem to, but they're eligible without going through the competitive process.
That's correct.
Because of the mileage limitation, we certainly didn't want somebody to knock out essentially one of our current
OTBs.
locations that already bet. So that was a little bit of back and forth. Delegate Guyton?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thanks so much. As somebody who's been fighting for the state fair for 3 years, I want to thank you for making sure that they were named in this legislation. Madam Vice Chair, I'm sorry, Madam Subcommittee Chair in particular. I just wanted to ask a question about the criteria for the 60 mobile licenses. Are those spelled out in the bill?
60
George
mobile
hasn't really gotten
licenses.
to that description yet, but there are definitely, yeah, go ahead, George.
The 60 mobile licenses would still be competitively applied for as under the House version.
And they would look at the minority what's the minority participation language in that regard?
So once again, the SWORC is going to examine the disparity study to look to potentially apply remedial measures to the industry. In addition, the Senate bill would have the SWORC consider whether to allow early access to mobile sports wagering, to the mobile sports wagering market to entities that have a meaningful partnership with minorities, women, and minority and women-owned businesses.
All right, Delegate Hornberger?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So on the House version that we sent over, a track at Fair Hill was on the guaranteed list. Is that no longer the case?
It was not on the guarantee list. They were authorized to apply for a Class B1 or B2 license, and they remain authorized to do so.
Yeah, we had made the exception to say that on DNR land, a specific location would be allowed to apply. And so that's, as George said, no, not gone. It's just they're not a named certain location.
Okay, and then the second question, for the licenses that, for example, don't take the off-track betting locations, there obviously can be new off-track betting entities in the future. Would they be able to apply for those remaining licenses if they were not spoken for?
Not as of this bill. We're having like a date from now, current OTBs.
They would be able to apply for a Class B license. If it were Class B, unassigned Class B licenses, but they wouldn't be a named licensee.
Right.
Nor would they
Okay,
get
but-
an unassigned OTB license if one of the OTBs didn't go for it.
Right.
We can obviously make changes to this in the future.
Yeah, and then what about unspoken for OTB license, if that's the case, what you just outlined?
We did not make any to say if only 2 of the 4 OTBs went for it. We weren't saying that there were 2 open OTB licenses later if there were new OTBs, but certainly, as often say, we're back next year and the year after and so forth. So we
Madam
could.
Chair, just a quick point on that. I think, George, OTBs can't just open up willy-nilly. They have a whole approval process too. Is that correct?
That's correct. There is a approval process that they need to go through in order to be permitted to have satellite simulcast betting occur at the location.
Right, but we've legislated no more casinos, for example. There's nothing saying that more OTBs can't open in the future.
That's also correct.
Thank you.
Delegate Wilkins?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Quick clarifying question, then I have my actual questions. For the mobile licenses, did you say 16 or 60?
60.
60. Okay, thank you. I also wanted to know, so there was the riverboat on the Potomac Casino, which is Black owned, and we received their tax dollars that I believe was either named or authorized. I wanted to know if they're still in the bill.
Yeah, we are.
They are. They're counted as an OTB.
They're one of the named OTBs.
Wonderful. Okay, and then my final question is that in terms of the amendments and changes to the bill, I know that our original bill had several provisions related to minority businesses. I think what I heard so far is around the disparity study and this meaningful partnership, which I'm not sure what exactly that would mean. That sounds very, very vague. but what in terms of minority businesses and their inclusion is still currently in the bill?
I think all the
So-
language that we had, but go ahead, George.
Correct.
I haven't seen it. I haven't seen it, so if George could please explain, since I haven't seen the bill.
The language previously that applied to both Class Bs and mobiles as the bill passed the House continues to apply to those license types, with
And
the
that's all I
exception
was
of the
saying.
named Class Bs that we discussed earlier. So once again, the SWARC is going to continue, is going to evaluate the study, determine what race and gender neutral measures may be taken to address the disparity, and then if necessary, adopt regulations that would take into account race and gender conscious measures. And as with medical cannabis, where that was done, that those race and gender conscious measures may include ownership as a factor to be considered in the scoring of the applications.
And I think we also built in, like after so many years, taking another look to see, given this number, the Senate wanted a larger number because they wanted it more open. They thought that would give even greater opportunities for MBEs. And it's part of that compromise. But one of the things we're going to look at after a number of years is there, I think with both physical and mobile, but to see it, or more so with physical, is there a saturation, undersaturation? Does it have the diversity it needs? Is it geographically dispersed? Like are all areas of the state, somebody has an opportunity, and consider, what we should do moving forward, that if we need more licenses or less, or who we should maybe give them to. So I don't think I explained that too well, George, but there is a study built in to see how we're doing on all this.
You did that well, and I'll get to that additionally
Okay.
as
Sorry.
we discuss the further changes.
All right, Delegate Smith.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to George for all of your hard work on this. Just two quick questions. One, I believe in the original House draft, we amended the part about, correct me for the name of the committee that would be deciding upon, issuing the various licenses. I believe that we included a requirement for them to send out some type of report to the MGA about how that process went. I don't know if that remained. And then I also wanted to make sure I had clarity on, is there some type of incentive for partnering with an MBE that could push up your application in the process? I thought I had heard something about that. So those are the two things I'm trying to get clear on.
So to your first question, there are numerous reports required under the bill. I'm not sure that we have a specific one with respect to the SWARC. However, I would note that the General Assembly is responsible for appointing 4 of the 7 members, and I'm sure that this work would be responsive to information or requests by the General Assembly. With respect to the second question, as noted earlier, the ownership potential consideration or scoring of MBE ownership may be one of the factors that is supported by the disparity study, but it would be necessary for the SWARC, in working with the Office of the Attorney General, GASBA, and the MDOT certifying agency, to ensure that that is something that is supported by the study. And if so, then it can be a factor for in the scoring of the applications for the competitive licenses under the bill.
Questions, Delegate Buckle.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My other question, I think I got 1 or 2 of them answered. George, what's the language currently about when the guaranteed licensees, the people who don't really have to go through SWARC for approval? So your Class A guarantees and the Class B pre-designated guarantees. What's the language about when we're directing lottery and gaming to get them up and running? Because one of my fundamental concerns is we've lost a couple of years to our state competition. I mean, DC has sports gambling. And when we started talking about this, DC wasn't even thinking about it. They now have it. I mean, I can go there today and sports gamble in DC. What's the language in terms of our direction of when those facilities that don't have to go through this secondary process are targeted to get up and running, either brick and mortar or mobile?
The first, one of the changes I haven't been able to speak to yet is the Senate has made the bill an emergency measure. Second, the SWARC is charged with awarding the Class A and Class B licenses to these designated entities, and can do so based on the emergency regulations that would be are promulgated by Lottery and Gaming. So those measures will permit those physical locations to move forward in a more expeditious manner.
But then the mobile will still be tied up in the SWARC process for awarding the 60 mobiles, because the A's and the guaranteed brick and mortar B's, I think the assumption, the fair assumption is that they'll be on the top of the line to get out, because we've created so many mobile licenses. 60 is probably more than anywhere in the country. That's great. But they still have to go through that process for the mobiles, correct?
Mobile remains competitive, and as indicated earlier, the SWARC will have to, evaluate the studies, determine what remedial measures to take, if any, and then regulations would be promulgated with respect to the scoring of those competitive license applications.
Okay, so we assume brick and mortar should be fairly quick. SWARC will do its job. Lottery and Gaming will do its job. Should be fairly quick for the guarantees. Mobile may be a more attenuated process. Is that fair to say?
I would say that everybody is going to be working expeditiously to implement the legislation.
Well, you certainly will, George. You always do. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thanks. Delegate Ivy for next question.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair, and congratulations, sir. To George, I wanted to ask, because I see that we've set aside certain licenses, certain entities and organizations, and I've heard what you've said about the remedial measures that could possibly be implemented if they see that there's a disparity between African Americans being able to get these licenses, which I think is pretty open and shut case here. I wanted to know if we could, in this legislation today, put in a set aside for if they do come back saying that we need to put these remedial measures in place, to set aside a number of these licenses to really provide for a better opportunity for these minority businesses to be able to apply. I'm just throwing a number out of my head. 10 of these mobile licenses,
Unfortunately, that cannot be done.
Sure.
And prior case law has not supported
Absolutely.
those types of set-asides, and that is why the evaluation of the disparity study and then the consideration of potential remedial measures, which may, as I indicated earlier, with respect to scoring of applications, take into account ownership by minority and women owners or entities as one of the factors that can be considered, but a strict set-aside is not permitted.
And I knew the answer to that question, because our medical cannabis industry already went through this fight. And I don't want to belabor the point, but we see that in that industry, there's still a lack of opportunity for minority-owned businesses to really grow and thrive in the industry. So I do want to say this again for the record, and I hope that SWARC is paying attention and the Attorney General's office is paying attention to this discussion as well, because it's unacceptable, and we cannot allow another industry to be created here in the state of Maryland that's going to keep out African Americans. So thank you, George, for all your work, and I look forward to the work ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. Delegate Ebersol.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So returning to Delegate Buckles' question, it's important to remember that one of the original motivations for having sports wagering in the state was to create more foot traffic at physical locations. And so and for the right reasons, they've been ready to go. The mobile licenses will come, but I think it was a good nod to them. And I think this will help the OTBs and everybody to really get off the ground and get their identity established. So it's just making that commentary. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Great. Next question, Delegate Barnes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, congratulations once again as well. Hey, let me just set the record straight because I know there's a lot of concern centered around the MBE portion of this bill. I want to first start off by thanking the subcommittee chairman, Delegate Lukey, Chairman Kaiser, George, of course, because there has been a lot of time and energy put into this bill to ensure that we try to hit all the marks. And to Delegate Ivy's point, I think we have really looked at medical cannabis to ensure that we do not make the same mistakes and going forward that we are taking the lessons learned. This is one of the strongest bills in the country. Let me say that again. This is one of the strongest bills in the country with the language that we put in to ensure minority participation, equity and inclusion, and in creating generational wealth anywhere in the country. If you look at the lessons learned from medical cannabis, when medical cannabis first came out, we awarded 15 licenses, all that went to white men. The second bill, House Bill 2, came out, we awarded, now we have more minorities participating in medical cannabis in anywhere in the country as far as licensees for growers and processors. That's a fact. So if you look at what we're doing here and ensuring that minorities are participating in this industry, we are leading the way. And I feel more than confident that minorities will have an opportunity to participate in yet another multi-million-dollar industry coming before the state of Maryland because of the work that this committee has done. And I think this is something that you all should feel good about, regardless of which side of the aisle that you're on, that you can take back to your communities, that there are minorities participating, there is equity and inclusion, there is diversity and inclusion in this bill, which makes it applicable for those that are watching this, know that they have an opportunity to participate. So I just wanted to say that to provide some comfort to at least my Black Caucus members that this bill does have the necessary things in there that we all can feel good about and take back to your communities that we are able to participate in ways that we have never done before. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Delegate Patterson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate the comments that were made by Delegate Barnes because he's absolutely correct. We've worked really hard on both sides, but I'm going to request that George Butler proceed with the amendments because I think some of the questions will be answered, but it's really important that we finish up with those amendments because we'll be voting on those later on.
I think that's a great idea. Back to you, George, and back to you, Mr. Vice Chair.
Thank
you. If I may, the Senate amendments, in light of the distinctions between the A1s, A2s, B1s, and B2s, also alter the application fees for sports wagering licenses authorized under the bill. They generally increased the initial application fees and it eliminated the annual fee that had been a part of the House proposal. They have maintained the renewal fee that the House initially proposed. They impose a 15% tax on proceeds from all the sports wagering types. If you'll recall, you had a differentiation with respect to mobile and online earlier. Only with respect to mobile. It would require sports wagering licensees to comply with certain data security laws, maintain certain data securely, prominently publish complaint procedures, and establish exclusion lists. It would also prohibit sports wagering licensees from sharing certain personally identifiable information, targeting advertising to certain individuals, or engaging in any false or deceptive advertising. The amendments provide that except under certain circumstances, a sports wagering facility is subject to local zoning laws. It would establish a new special fund that would be funded by a portion of the licensing fees to provide grants or loans to small, minority-owned, and women-owned businesses to facilitate their participation in the sports wagering industry.
I think I have them both.
It would prohibit the sales or transfers of ownership of a license except under certain circumstances. That prohibition is similar to the one that applies to the medical cannabis industry. It would require State Lottery and Gaming Control Commission to report certain information to the General Assembly on or before December 1st, 2025 concerning the sports wagering industry in the state. This is separate and apart from the earlier reporting requirements. And this report is the report that Chair Kaiser referenced earlier in our discussion. It would require appropriations for establishing centers to study data analytics and sports gaming at certain historically Black colleges and universities. It would provide for a supplementary appropriation of certain revenues received under the bill in order to implement Chapter 36 of 2021. And lastly, it would make the provisions of the bill severable in the bill an emergency measure.
Got it. Thanks. Any questions, Delegate Rose?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't know if I'm unmuted.
You are.
Okay, thank you. Just to go back to the earlier questions, I think I heard George say it, but I'm driving and the internet was going in and out. All of the existing OTVs are in this final bill, correct? Including mine and Carroll County, if they want one.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much. And thank you all for your hard work.
Yes, thank you. Any other questions? I did see Delegate Ivy's hand up. Delegate Ivy, did you have a question, follow up?
No, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Awesome. Any other questions on this bill or the amendment? And we don't have the bill yet, just so you all know. All right, seeing none, we're gonna, Madam Chair.
No, I just want to make sure, yes, we were going through this now. If you have other questions that come up over the next couple hours, reach out to myself, Delegate Barnes, Delegate Patterson, Delegate Lukey, who's working with the Senate. Certainly, if you really want the best answers of all, reach out to George if you have some questions. But I wanted to give everyone the time now because later on, if we only have a short break, we might be able to concur immediately if people are comfortable. But do let me know immediately if you do have any big concerns. But it's a case of a typical compromise. We didn't get everything we wanted, but we believe that we are creating a good legal process here and that we're creating great opportunities for MBEs. So that's all we got. And I'll see you all later. Thank you.
Hey, Madam Chair.
Yes.
We still have one more bill.
Oh.
1322.
Oh, I thought you special ordered that before.
I did. I wanted to bring it back now if we could.
Go ahead. We lost one or two people, but I think we're okay. Go ahead.
All right. Thank you, Madam Chair. And just for the record, I like to also special order my own bills, just so people don't feel bad when I do that to other bills. The Senate amendment rewrites the bill to clarify that the governor, the state superintendent, the state board of education, a county board of education, or a county superintendent may not retaliate against a teacher or education support professional based on not returning for in-person instruction during the 2020-2021 school year. It requires a county board to respond within 5 days of receipt of a notification that someone is not returning to work based on being or living with someone who is 65 years of age or older or has a medical condition. And it states that nothing in this act may be construed to supersede a collective bargaining agreement. We move to concur, Madam Chair.
Second.
All right. Thank you. Any questions? All right. Thank you. All those in favor of the concurrence? Counting hands. Yeah. Any opposed? All right. Thank you. Thank you, Delegate Mr. Fisher, that we could still move forward. All right. Thank you. See you all later.